Hello friends, in this video we will talk about a important topic in JavaScript. You might be knowing if you are coding in JavaScript or learning JavaScript. In JavaScript there is no sleep function, and most of the programming language like C++, Java, Python and Ruby, almost all the languages have a sleep function. But JavaScript doesn't have, and it is because of the event loop, which is a bigger topic and I will talk on some other day. But in this video, we will talk about how we can implement the JavaScript sleep function. So stay tuned, we will meet after a short intro. So first, let's go on the screen and see how we can implement the JavaScript sleep function and what it does. And then we will see the code in JavaScript, and we will implement in 3 different ways the sleep function, and we will talk about what are the pros and cons of each implementation. So let's go into the screen. So we want to implement sleep function, right? And how this sleep function work? In the argument, like we give some milliseconds or whatever the time frame that we want to sleep. And let's say in a normal program, if you have few instructions and the program counter will run in this way to run the this code, right, to execute this code, and at some point of time you need the program to hold on so that it can wait for something. Maybe we may have a made a call to some outside system, and we want to wait so that this can complete, or let's say there is some background task is going on and it's want to sleep for some time so that it can run later, right? So in JavaScript, because the event loop this sleep function is not present, because it's not sequential, it runs based on the event loop, and we will talk in some other video about this bigger topic, and this is a very important topic of JavaScript and which also made it very powerful. So let's go and see how we can implement this function. First method like we will talk about is based on brute force approach. What is brute force? So basically, if you want to save sleep for some time, right, then we can, one way is like we can wait for that time, and waiting can be based on a loop, like we can keep looping on that particular time interval. So for example, we have started sleeping at t1, right, and we have to sleep, let's say, for 100 milliseconds, or let's talk 1 second, so like 1000 milliseconds. So we can get the current time, right, which is t1, and then we will plus our t2 will be this, right, and we will wait till the current time is not this, t1 plus 1 second, right. So that is the brute force approach. The disadvantage of this approach is definitely it is the blocking call, as JavaScript is single threaded, right, there is only one thread which is running, so that thread will become blocked for this much of amount of time, and this can be little bit higher also, let's say 5 seconds, 10 seconds, then the program may not be able to do any other thing. So to avoid that, like there are some other approaches. Second approach we can use based on the setTimeout. So you might have used setTimeout or heard about this particular function in JavaScript. Basically it will wait for some time and then bring the program counter again, right. So with this itself, like it is not a sleep function, because it will execute some other code, right. So for example, when we put the setTimeout equal to 1000, right, or 1 second, basically these are milliseconds. So yeah, so let's say now okay, yeah, so let's say now if we set timeout after a few instructions, right, and then we'll run some, but what will happen, this set timeout takes some callback function, right? Now this callback code will run after this much of amount of time, but this code will run automatically after like this set timeout goes into the event loop, this particular code, and program will start from here. So this particular code is not basically blocked for some time, so that we will get some time from the sleep. Now one approach is definitely you can put this whole code into this callback and then come back, but this is very clumsy. It may not be possible, like we have to put all the things in that callback. So we can use this function and promise in JavaScript to implement this sleep function. So we will do in the code, and definitely one approach that we have implemented using the promise and callback. Other approach, third approach is using the promise but async await, so that the code will look very clean, and it will behave just as a sleep function of other programming language. Okay, so let's go to the code. So if you see, we have a function called sleep brute force, and it is taking some milliseconds in its argument, and then we are taking the current time, right? And like then we have console some logs so that we can see it is waiting, and then we are running a while loop, and the condition is this new current time should be less than this. That means this much of time should be elapsed. This means like it will have sleep for that particular amount of time, right? And then this part of the code will work. But yes, you are seeing like this is blocking because it is running continuously. So let's run this code and see. So it has slept for 1 second. And if you want to see explicitly, let's increase to 2 seconds so that we have some time. Sleeping for with blocking, and then after sleep, like it is printing completed sleep after blocking. Okay, this is the first approach, which is a brute force. Let's talk about second approach. So I have already the code. So this is implemented using the callbacks, sleep, and then in this function what we are returning, we are creating a promise, okay, a new promise, and it is taking some callback function. And this function generally, like if you worked with promise, it will take 2 parameters. The callback should take the 2 parameters, resolve and reject. This function, and these parameters are functions, and these functions will be called once the task is done. Okay, if it is successful, then we will call this resolve, and if it is failure, then reject. But in this case, like it's waiting for some time, so we just call the resolve. And we are using this set timeout. It is taking some callback function. After timeout, it will run this, and we have waited for time as given in the argument. Okay, so we call this function as well. So this is calling sleep, waiting for 2 seconds. After that, the argument is passed, like feeling refreshed after sleep. This is a function which will print this thing. So let's comment this part of the code, and now let's run. So if you see, it is waiting for 2 seconds, and then it printed feeling refreshed after sleep. Cool. So let's move to our third approach, which is based on promise and async await. Let's go. So again, I have implemented already, and I'm now uncommenting this code. Let's comment this call so that we don't get printed of this. Yeah, so there is a sleep await, and again it will take some parameter as in for the time it want to sleep. We are creating a promise and then we are resolving. So basically the promise will take some callback function. Here you might have seen like we don't have the reject. It's just because it's not needed, so we have omitted it and we are using the arrow functions. This is the arrow function syntax, right? So it is calling again the timeout and then we are calling resolve and time. Now the beauty of this function is we will call this function as if it's just one statement using the async await. So we have implemented one wrapper called delay, which will take again time in milliseconds, and it will print for us to notice that it is started running and this is after completion, and in between we are sleeping for some given time. So we can call this function. So we are waiting for 2 seconds and let's now run this code. It's before sleeping and after sleeping, it waited, right? So this is the implementation of sleep function in JavaScript, and JavaScript doesn't provide any such function for sleep. You have to implement it. The first approach is better for some which is a call which is basically a blocking based blocking call. It can be tried for testing, but definitely it should not be used for production. You can use other two implementation based on callback and or async await using the promise for production. It is more robust and without blocking. So I hope you got the gist of this sleep thing in JavaScript, and I'm sure now you won't fear with this implementing the sleep in JavaScript language, and you don't have to rely on any language or any library. So with this I think you got the idea, and please let me know in the comment section if you have any doubt, any question, and what is your understanding and takeaways from this video, because when you write it you will get it more. It will you will remember it for some long time. So stay tuned. This is BK from Aneka signing off.